Can you say that, Helen?
Yeah, looks great.
Okay, fine. Right. Well, okay. So let's kick off. Oh, okay. So we're going to talk about tool range to start with, and then PPE. So this is the first plate. So the most practical, most used, I think, of all the pruning tools is secateurs. They really are kind of, the design is kind of like second cousin to Madame la Guillotine. You've got one really sharp blade which slides past an anvil and makes a nice clean cut. It's a huge improvement. My father used to say that when he was pruning, he used to use like pre-industrial pruners, rather like a sheep shearers, with a sprung, two-blade sprung. But he said that his wrists swelled up terribly at the end of a day of pruning. They don't use this in France anymore now for the vineyards. They have these power-packed things which they just press a button and they can do acres in a day. But for us general gardeners, secateurs really, I think, are the best. I like the ones which you can get at all the bits. I'll show you a bit later on a spear injection, which you can't get to anything, but it also means you can't sharpen the blade, which is a bit of a pain. Loppers, yeah, they're really useful. It's the next size up. So secateurs go up to about the size, if you're lucky, about the size of a thumb, a branch the size of a thumb. Loppers can go up a lot higher. They come in all sorts. I remember seeing one in Somerset where they were cutting willow, and they had extending arms to give you much more leverage, and they would go through quite a lot. This is the one that I use. It's a short handle one, but I really wouldn't. I would only use it for things up to about the size of I don't know, a banana, I suppose. I wouldn't go much bigger than that. And then we've got two saws. Now the bow saw is really, I think, a bit of a hacksaw. You know, it's got the teeth are quite large, and it can make a bit of a mess. But if you're just trying to cut, roughly cut things off before you do a final cut, they are quite a useful thing, and they'll go through quite big trunks. But my preferred saw is this Japanese silky saw. I mean, they really are deadly sharp. I mean, second cousin to a samurai sword. The only bad thing about it is it hasn't got a guard, and I've cut myself even by touching the blades. But they do make a beautiful cut, and they come in a whole range of different sizes. I have two, and they are really the best. I can do a nice sweet cut right through quite big branches. So I would say if you're really doing a lot of pruning of quite big old trees, big trees, then that would be the hand saw that I'd go for. Then we're going up a stage now. I've got a pole lopper and a saw, but again, that's really for just rough work, taking things off for beyond my height. If trees haven't been pruned for a number of years, because all fruit trees want to be the tallest tree in the forest, so they just go up and up and up. And sometimes you just got to bring them back down again, mostly because harvesting becomes almost impossible without either ladders and things like that. And these days we try to avoid it if we can. So they're quite good. It works with it's an extendable pole, and then you pull the rope, and a blade comes and slices. And then you can also fix that saw on as well. So it's a useful thing to have as a backup. Chainsaws, well, I think you'd have to be professional to really get into stuff like that. That needs, it's a whole different class of actual pruning. So, but I put it in just in case I didn't know what some of you might be doing, some big stuff. The pole chainsaw, there's quite a lot advertised these days for either electric or battery, and also as an extending pole as well. So they are quite useful, but again, you really got to have a specific use really. That you you've got to be quite careful. They can be quite dangerous. I mean, I don't know if your group actually has a pool of tools, or if you actually all share across, but these things you wouldn't need all the time, but they might be quite useful. Right, okay, so that's the sort of range of tools that we're talking about. I would say never use an axe, except on noisy neighbours perhaps. It really is not a good, doesn't make a good clean cut. I mean, I have one, but it's only for making firewood, really. It should never be used for pruning, I don't think. Right, personal protective equipment. I mean, yes, I mean, it's fairly obvious, but I've seen some bad cuts, things in eyes and things like that. So over the years, and so I'm quite keen to, I know it's so easy just to rush out when you've got a bit of time to do things, but it really is worth thinking about what you're doing and to protect yourself. Pair of gloves, I think, is a very good idea. I got sepsis once in the finger, and I had to have very powerful antibiotics because I wasn't wearing gloves. So that'll teach me. So gloves, I think, is always wear gloves. Something to protect the eyes. Well, I've got glasses, so I think I can get away with that. But I think I'm not sure I'd go for the full goggles that I've got the picture of, but something to protect your eyes. Things do switch and twist and in most surprising things, and you think it's going to be all right, and then something jumps in your eye. Don't ask me how it does it. Hard hats, well, no, I mean, only if you're taking down some really tall trees. If you're doing small fruit trees, you certainly wouldn't need that. Boots, yeah, I mean, just wear proper boots, something sensible, something firm that she won't slip and is comfortable. I know it might be a pain, it might be easier just to go out in I don't know, slippers or something, but really, you don't know what's going to fall on your foot. You might as well protect yourself. High-vis jackets, well, only if you're somewhere where the public are near, just to let them know what you're doing. And then finally, I think the most important is the first aid box. I did a socially distanced one-to-one pruning lesson a couple of weeks ago, and the first thing he did was to slice his finger open with the secateurs. So luckily I had my first aid kit and we managed to carry on. But yeah, it's to have one handy. This is cuts can be quite serious. I've got these two, which just to hopefully scare you to death. The woman who got pricked in the finger by a thorn, and she died of sepsis. I mean, this is terrible, but that happens. It often, you see it quite often in the newspapers. You have to bear in mind that bacteria will double every hour. So, even if you only got a small cut, if you don't treat it and clean it up, the bacteria will double and double. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 16, 36. It just goes on, and then the body's left to fight it. So, do take anything you get, even a prick. Take it seriously, clean it, put some antiseptic on it, and cover it. The other one I think is, I mean, it shouldn't be funny, but I mean, what the hell is he doing with with a metal aluminium ladder near power lines? But that's America for you. So yeah, just better to be careful, really. Also, we're talking about hygiene for the trees as well. There's a lot of nasty things that apple trees can actually pick up. Don't forget, these are all cultivars. They're not wild trees. They're not as tough as wild trees. We've actually probably disarmed them from having, good defenses, as we've chosen them for sweetness of apple, harvest, and a whole range of things. So when you've actually done one tree, before you move to another, if you have a dip solution of 10% bleach, just dip your tools in it, and then dry it off, and then spray it with WD-40, and then you won't be carrying the bacteria and the viruses from one tree to the next. Because I have seen it where one orchard was completely devastated by somebody went through and didn't clean, and they passed on canker to every tree. It was just quite a disaster, really. So yeah, so do think about that, keeping your tools clean. So what are we talking about? Well, we're talking about when we're doing the cuts, we're talking about making a nice clean cut. What I say is that medieval kings, never died of surgery, or very rarely died of surgery, mostly because the surgeons who did the work, when they got the job, went out and bought new, clean, sharp scalpels. And the same with trees. If you make a nice, clean cut, cutting through this inner bark and the cambium layer, the tree will self-heal. And here's a couple of pictures of what it should look like. So this is where a nice clean cut's been made and the tree has self-healed. I must tell you that actually the one on the right is a memento of my father's days. That was a tree that he pruned. I found it when we were clearing the house out, and I thought I'd keep it, and I'm very proud of it because he certainly didn't have the sharp Japanese pruning saw that I had, but he was a real expert at it. So that's what you're aiming at, really. Okay, so secateurs, we're going to be looking at the bypass secateur, and this is where the blade passes an anvil, which I think is the best. You also get anvil secateurs where the blade goes into a notch on the other side, but it kind of crushes things. It really is a bit of a hack thing. I really wouldn't use it for most things, perhaps for a very light rose pruning or something like that, but I don't think it's really worth it. So the secateur is really the thing. The bypass secateur is really the thing, and it's about looking after that blade. And you can, hopefully you can see that you can also use what skills you're going to learn now about sharpening a blade on other things like loppers and shears and all the rest of it. So there we go. And you can see the bypass secateur, the image, the drawing on the left, it's sliding past the anvil and making a cut. Shears are doing just about the same thing. There's two blades passing each other and they make a cut, whereas the anvil is just crushing and cutting at the same time. Right, okay, so now I'm going to do some magic. Helen, do you want to tell a story or something, or sing a song? I don't know. Helen,
This was the bit. This was the bit where Paul was saying, "Oh, can you improvise for this?"
Yeah. Sorry about that, Helen. Okay, so I'm just readjusting my camera. Just get my secateurs in there so I know where I am. Okay, so let me come out of that, and I'm gonna try, Helen, I'm gonna try this thing with another camera, so hopefully that will actually. Oh no, it won't work. Okay, it's just going to have to be that one then. Can everyone see it? All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, can see it. And well done for trying this on Zoom. It's great.
Yeah.
Well done.
It was just
Brilliant.
It was just a bit too far, really, wasn't it? Okay, so you can all see that there. Right.
Yeah.
So that's my secateurs. Right. Let me put on my magic gloves. Helen, where's your story? Or was your?
Sorry, I failed you.
You said you were going to sing or something. I mean, what's going on?
Sing a song. There's apparently a very good book about apple trees that grow well in Wales. I'll post it in the chat if people are into apple trees.
Oh, that'd be nice. Right.
There's a little tidbit.
Okay. Okay, so I don't know. Is there any way I can? No, there's no way that I can make that bigger. Sorry about that. So you're going to have to.
It looks fine.
Yeah, you can all see it. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So so here's my secateurs. These are Falcos, expensive, but worth the money. They've got good steel. And if you can see, they're a nice shiny blade. I can't get in my shed the moment because of the rain has warped the door, saw on the door, so I can't actually get in to get all my stuff that I usually have. So I had to borrow this pair of secateurs from a neighbour. But you can see how dark it is, and that means it's dirty, and you really want to make it shiny like this one here. Okay, so let's go first and see, and you'll just watch me. So this is my standard pair of secateurs, which I use to show people how to take these things apart. So the first thing you do is to open the lock and to take out the leaf spring. Now, this is a bit of a miracle thing, I think. I mean, this is only since the Industrial Revolution that we've actually managed to have things like this leaf spring. This is not a thing that a local blacksmith could have knocked up. It's definitely part of the machine age. It's quite wonderful. It carries on springing, you know, forever and ever and ever. So just keep it clean and oiled, and that'd be fine. When you're starting to take apart things, use a pot. My very first lecture, when I was teaching a group of 20 in an orchard, I managed to drop one of the screws on the grass, and it's still there, I think. I don't think it'll ever be found. So since then, I've always actually used a pot to just put all the bits in as we come. The tool that I will use tonight just to take it apart is a normal fillet screwdriver. But I would suggest to all of you that actually one of the things to have in your toolkit is a multi-tool like this that's actually got lots of different types, got a knife and screws and things. And it's surprising how often you'll need it. And it also has a Phillips screwdriver in it as well. Very useful thing to have. Right, so the first thing to do, now the spring's gone, is to take the two arms apart. So the first thing is to undo the locking nut, and that comes off. I feel a bit like Tommy Cooper, actually. You know, this is like with white hands, but anyway, doing some ghastly trick.
It's magic, Paul.
Thank you so much. Right, okay, so that's the locking nut, which I'll show you on the way back. And then you've got this wonderful nut I call a sun nut. And that's how you tighten the two sides together. Now, as you saw, how bypass secateurs work is by sliding the sharp blade past an anvil. If you have it too tight, you won't be able to move. If it's too loose, you won't make a decent cut. So you get it just right with your finger, and we'll do that when I try and put it back together again. And then you hold it in place with that locking knot. The locking nut. A wonderful bit of design, very clever. So there you go. We've now got it in two pieces. So this is the anvil, and you can see that needs cleaning as well. So you know, that's the other half of the job. But the main thing is to get the blade. So on this one, there's a grub nut, which you can unscrew and actually take the blade off, which will make life a lot easier, he says. There you are, little grub nut. That's what another reason why you put it in the pot, because it will fall. Okay, so that whole unit can go in there, and you're now left with the actual blade itself. And this is what we're going to be sharpening. So what do I use? Well, I actually made myself a little kit up. I've got about 3 or 4 of them. These detergent capsule pots are really useful size, and it's a nice thing to have in. So what do I have in it? Well, first of all, I have the stone. So this is a wet stone. You can get these at most DIY stores. I don't know, can you see that it's a two-tone color? I don't know if you can see it. There's a line here. Probably it's not sharp enough.
Yeah, we can just see it.
That's it. Okay, so well, basically one side's coarse and one side's fine. So it's a very useful stone. What else do you need? Well, you need a 3-in-1 oil to use with the whetstone. I think more importantly is you need WD-40. You can get these little pots which will fit in to that container. I do love WD-40. I don't know, I think I might be addicted slightly. It's also good for knees as well, knee joints, I've discovered. That's quite good. And then finally, some emery paper. So this is the stuff that it's sandpaper for metal. And then of course, rags and things like that. Okay, so we start now. So I choose the coarse side. Now these blades, if you can see, if I can put my hand to be easier, it's actually a flat piece of metal, but actually on the top side it's been shaved to go down to a point, an edge, and actually that's the blade. So one side is flat, and that's the one that slides past the anvil, and the other side is the cutting side. Now, the way that you sharpen that, you can see that there's an edge. So that's the chamfer there, and then that silvery line is actually the cutting edge, and that's what you're actually aiming to sharpen. So it's a whetstone. So as the whetstone says, actually before I start, what you would do is, before you really start, is you want to clean it up. Even in winter, when you cut anything, you'll get plant juices which will go quite dark. So the way that you can clean that up is a bit of WD-40 and an emery paper, and actually that will actually clean the blade. And you can see that's taking it off. I'm not going to do it perfectly because otherwise I'll be here all night. But again, just a bit of WD-40, and all that darkness will come off, and you'll get a nice shiny blade. It's not sharp, but it's clean. So that's the first step. And you can do that with all your blades, whether it's loppers, shears, or whatever. You've got to clean it first. So you're back to the bare metal again. Yeah. So right. So how do we sharpen? Well, it's a whetstone. So in the old days it used to be water, but these days it's a 3-in-1 oil, and you put a line onto the whetstone, and then holding and I'm sorry, I'm right-handed for those who are left-handed, but you hold it between finger and thumb, and what you do is you run the blade with the flat side towards you and the chamfered side against the stone, and you're running it. So you do a sort of funny motion where you're dragging it down, so the whole length of that edge is actually being felt onto the whetstone. And keep it wet, so keep putting your oil on. It works best. It's a knack. Don't give up when you first start. It might seem impossible, but if you can't do the sort of rolling action and then do a section and then change it and then change it and then change it, so you get to do the whole length. Now you'll know that you're actually doing something, because if you gently put your finger on the flat side, you should feel burrs of metal coming up, and that means that it's actually being sharpened, that you're actually having some effect. I can't feel much at the moment, so let me put some more oil on. And oh, this is so much fun. All right. So again, can you see that it's never flat, it's always on an angle, to try and get that angle. And then I can feel some burrs coming on the edge. So once you've got some burrs, you can turn it over to the fine side of the whetstone, put some oil on it, and then you put the blade onto the whetstone flat, like that, and then rub it, and that fine whetstone will actually take off those burrs. And lo and behold, luckily I've got gloves on, but you will, if you do it very gently, you'll feel suddenly how sharp it is. Yeah, has everyone got that? Nod your head if you say no. Yeah, okay, fine. So, and you keep on doing it until you can, your finger will tell you when it's sharp, surprisingly. And you can keep on doing it, but it's basically to get that, really to get that, you can see it being picked up by the light. That line there should be chamfered and then be bent over, and then the burrs actually taken off the other side, and it suddenly becomes magically sharp. And that really is quite a sharp blade now. Right, now this is the bit I usually mess up. I'm going to now put the whole thing back together again. So certainly with the anvil, doesn't need any sharpening, but I will certainly would use emery paper and make it nice and shiny. If you can see there, so I haven't got time to do it all tonight, but there you are. So the first thing in reverse is to put the blade back. So that fits on and it comes out the pot. And this is the point I usually drop it into the floor. Helen, sing your song. Okay, so that's now going back in. And now it's very sharp. It's a dangerous tool, so do be extremely careful. Right, that's now firmly back in. That's got the blade back in. Right, now we put on the anvil and we get the spindle that goes through from the far side. Right, and that's now working, so that's good. We put the locking plate on, like so. And then the sun nut goes back on. I think. Helen, song again.
This is high pressure situation, Paul.
Yeah. You know, these things, you'll find that mechanical things have a mind of their own. Okay, now this is the important bit, is to actually tighten this sun nut. So if you can feel a wobble, that's not tight enough. It's got to be quite tight, not so tight that you can't slide the thing easily, but tight enough that you've not got a wobble in it, yeah? Does that make sense? Does that make sense, anyone? Yeah, hopefully. And then once that's done, you can now lock it in place with the locking nut. So that goes back on. Can you still see that, everyone? Yeah. Okay, so that locking nut will fit into the teeth of the sun nut and hold it in place. So that needs to be quite firm. These things do work their way loose always. Don't ask me how they do it. How to spite, I think. So that's another reason why you should carry some sort of screwdriver when you're working. Otherwise, it'll end in tears. Okay, so that's now, I can now move it, and it's now running very easily past the anvil. And then finally, we come to the wonderful leaf spring. And that's now fully functioning. And don't forget, you always leave it with it locked. Please do not leave it open. I've seen some nasty things happen with people who do that. Okay, now that's for secateurs, but you can actually, but you saw me there using the whetstone flat on the surface, but you can actually pick it up and actually use it on a blade to wipe. That's what I was asking. Was it Michelle? I was asking what shape it was. You can buy circular whetstones, and they're quite useful. The guys that used to do scything. In fact, these days there's a lot of women doing it as well. It's a very popular pastime. But they have circular. They have like a tubular whetstone for sharpening blades. But you can still use this. So again, with great care, you can open up the page. If you can't take it apart, you'd have to work with it still together. So be careful. The first thing, again, the routine is you use WD-40 and emery paper to clean the blade, get off all the muck so you can see it, and then you can see where the blades slide past each other, and that will be the inside, and then you sharpen it where the chamfer is so that they slide past each other. It can be done. It's more fiddly. There's a lot more things on the market these days. I don't know if any of you still use the old metal sharpeners for cutting out roast joints. My father had one. It was a metal one which used to go. I don't know if you remember those. You can use those as well. So there's a whole range, but I still think, for my money, the best way is a whetstone, really. Okay, I think that's about it. I've got all my fingers and toes, which is good. So let me turn the camera back. So then we can. Oh, that's it.
Fab, thanks, Paul.
That's it. And I'll put that on the floor.
So smooth.
Right, was that okay, everyone? I've still got all fingers.
That was great. Thank you.
Unbelievably.
It was brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, was any use? So the kit is WD-40, 3-in-1 oil, a whetstone of some sort, especially the square one, and emery paper. Yeah, and then loads of cloth. Yeah. Sorry. Is that
which oil do you use? Which brand?
Well, this is a B&Q one.
Okay, so
it's just called 3-in-1.
Yeah.
It's not. I don't know what the brand is. It doesn't actually have a brand on it, but I know I got it from Wix.
No, that's fine. Cool. I thought you might just have a specific one that you'd recommend.
No. I mean, I think they're all pretty much. If it's 3-in-1,
the same. Yeah. Thank you.
That's all right. Okay, I don't know anything else you want to. I mean, I know it might seem. I know you were talking about loppers. Again, you can take loppers apart and then work on each side and put it back together again. But if you can't take it, if it's jammed up, you can unjam things by using WD-40. That will loosen most bolts. But if you don't want to do that, then you can, if you're careful. And these things do have a habit of sliding together, so do be careful. You can do it by hand holding the whetstone and actually just doing it in the air, if you like, rather than on the surface.
Great.
And that's really about it. And you'll be surprised actually how sharp that is. And once, I don't know, the person who said that they sharpened all their kitchen stuff, once you start using sharp secateurs, you'll never want to go back to horrible things that will actually tear. I was going to say, I didn't actually mention that one of the things that used to be recommended was a substance, like a sort of a wax called heal and seal. So if you did make a mess, I mean, the aim is to cut that twig, that branch, nice and sharp, so the tree can self-heal. I mean, but the way of the world, quite often you tear the bark a bit, just by mistake. Don't put but they recommend these days you don't put heal and seal on the end of a branch. But if you've accidentally torn down the bark down one side, you can put it on like TCP to help the tree heal a bit, because it works. Trees heal better when it's at the end of a branch rather than down the side. And there's a lot of viruses floating around, and you really want to be careful. You don't want to allow any of these things like canker to get into your tree. I mean, it's such a tragedy if you have a nice fruit tree and then seeing it get canker is like leprosy or something. It's horrible. So do be careful. And the 10% bleach solution might seem over the top, but it really isn't. Okay.
Thanks, Paul. We've got a few questions in the chat.
Oh, good. I just have to go, actually.
Sorry.
So, okay, so far away.
John would like to know what is your favourite make and model of your secateurs?
Falcos. Yeah.
Yeah, someone's actually put in the chat the website for them.
I mean,
is that a particular model you have?
No, I can't. Number 6, it says. I mean, these ones you can get for about £5 in garden centres, and they're quite good as long as you can sharpen the blade. I do like them because you can take them apart. Falcos, I think this cost me under £10. This one cost me over 30 because the steel's better, and it probably will last me much longer. This is a spear injection that I borrowed from a neighbour to show you what a dirty blade looks like. But it's very difficult. You can't take it apart. There's no way you can take the thing apart. So you'd have to try and get in to do the blade by hand up here, which would be, I think, is really a pain. So again, when you're buying secateurs, try and get ones where you can see all the gubbins, and then you can take them apart. I mean, it makes life a lot easier.
Great, thanks. Heather asked, or do you want to ask a question, Heather? About storage?
Oh yeah, can you give any advice about storing your tools after you've cleaned them? What's the best kind of environment?
Well, because you've actually scraped metal, it's prone to rust if you keep it somewhere damp. So I would say the last thing I would do is to either spray it with WD-40 or actually probably better 3-in-1 oil. Just give it a light coating, like you would do with a Le Creuset cooking pot. You actually would seal it with oil before you put it away, and then I'd wrap it in an old tea towel. I've got lots of old tea towels, and then put it in a Tupperware to keep the moisture away, and that'd be fine. But you're quite right. I mean, I know it's a pain, especially you've been working very hard to come back and clean up your tools, but you really don't want to then face rusty, dirty tools when you suddenly have the joys of spring and you want to go and do some pruning. So yeah, just got to sound like my mother and my father. Clean it up before you put it away, boy. So yeah, so I mean, it's old advice, but it's good advice. But yeah, it's moisture, Heather, that will get it rather than anything else. So seal it with oil and put it in a rag somewhere in a Tupperware, and it'll be fine.
Thank you.
Heather?
Kath
has asked, do you have any hints for sharpening curved blades like bill hooks? Yeah,
I mean, because my father my father used to do hedging by hand, and so he had a whole lifetime of bill hooks. He was always they moved to Dorset and then retired, and were amazed at how beautiful the hedges were until he realized that they're actually done mechanically. Yeah, he used to use a circular a tube whetstone, and so he would do wiping it like that. He'd do it by holding. Again, it's a knack. Put the 3-in-1 oil on the whetstone and gradually work it. The thing about a bill hook is that it's actually not got one flat side, it's actually 2 sides coming together, bit like a sword or something, I suppose. So you would sharpen it either side like that, like you would do a sort of a knife before you start carving a roast or something. You just you do that kind of motion where you're actually pushing it, and so you're making those points sharper. But they are quite deadly. You see, the family story was that my brother ran in front of his arm when he was just about to do a down blow, but unfortunately he missed him. But anyway, yes, they can be quite deadly, so do be careful.
Great. Jane says, would beeswax work? I think that's in relation to when you were talking about repairing trees, putting the TCP style thing on trees.
Sorry, Helen, could you repeat that? I didn't get that very clear.
Oh, would beeswax work in terms of looking after trees when there's a cut that needs some care?
What, on a tree?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I'm sure my great grandfather didn't have heel and seal, and certainly they use wax for when they're doing grafting. So yes, I think it would be a really good thing to have. They've also, I mean, bees are really clever, of course, as we all know, and they have antibiotics within the honey and probably within the wax as well. So it'd be a doubly good to use. It's very satisfying. I know if you're making a leather handle, if you rub it with beeswax, it makes a really good, strong thing to have to hold. Beeswax is good, yeah.
Great. And Heather, you got another question. I don't know if you want to ask it.
Come on, Helen. Heather, is it Heather? Yeah, you're still muted, mate.
Yeah, sorry. I'm allowed to, thank you. Could you give us a few tips about sharpening saw-toothed blades?
Yeah, I really wouldn't, quite honestly.
Oh, okay.
It's a very difficult thing to do. You have to put it in a clamp, and then you go with a file, and then you do each individual tooth one by one. I've never done it, quite honestly. It just seemed like too much work. As soon as I got the Japanese silky pruning saw, that's it. I mean, that never goes blunt, and it's a much better saw. I mean, you could have a good close look at it, and if you see that perhaps they're slightly bent, I mean, do you feel that it's not cutting as sharply as it did when you first bought it? I mean, is that why you're wanting to sharpen it?
No, it's all right. I just thought that I was neglecting it by not doing anything to it, but actually it's working all right.
Yeah, if it's working all right.
Yeah.
And I just basically you clean it, making sure that it hasn't got bits in the teeth.
Yeah.
And you can oil it, or you can use WD-40 to keep it nice and shiny, and then just oil it to keep the air away from the metal. Yeah, I mean, it's good. But then, I mean, it's a real skilled job doing any sort of saw.
Okay.
My dad used to do it, but I just get so bored with it. To walk away. Terrible, bad. I hate to admit that, but anyway.
Great, thank you. I don't feel so bad about not doing anything with it.
You're all forgiven.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions people want to unmute and just ask them?
Go on, Adrian, do it.
You were so comprehensive, Paul.
You are so
nothing except, although I'm very upset with myself, I was going to sharpen along as you were teaching, and I forgot my bloody oil in my shed, so I'll have to remember.
Yeah,
but
well, I'm sure it's burnt into your imagination forever now.
It is. It is. I have my secateurs in pieces in front of me, and that way until tomorrow when I go back to my shed.
Good idea.
Really great.
You see, it was worth the money I paid you, wasn't it? Really.
Absolutely. I take installments, so it's fine.
Oh, good. Thank God for that. Right, Helen. Any more? Helen?
No, I think that's it. Thank you.
You sure?
Yeah, everyone looks very content and that they're going to go off and tomorrow morning go and do their own tools. So
well,
thank you so much, Paul.
I mean, the important thing is to not, to be careful, but to try and get the right tools as always, and actually, once you get more confidence, you'll never want to prune with unsharp tools again, because it will make it so much easier. Did I say that after you've dipped it in the bleach solution, dry it off and then spray it with, or give it some oil, because otherwise the bleach will start eating into the metal. That's the only thing I think I've forgotten. I'm sure there's lots I've forgotten, but anyway, I think that's about it.
No, that was brilliant. Thank you so much, Paul, for your time and your expertise.
Nice audience, nice questions. Thank you very much. I've enjoyed it a great deal.
There's lots of thanks in the chat too, so thank you, everyone.
Oh, how very kind.
Thank you. Thanks so
everyone.
much.
Thank you.
Goodbye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Helen.
Thank
for organising.
you. Thanks for coming. And if you keep an eye on the Mach website, we've got some other workshops coming up. We've got mushroom cultivating, seed saving. We've got injera cooking workshop. So yeah, keep an eye on the website or the Facebook page, and you'll see the details of those.
Okay, well, have a good pruning season.
My throat.
And
You know.
Helen, if there are any more
Yeah.
questions people would like to ask because they forgot or something,